Welcome to the All About Us podcast, the podcast where we explore the stories, roots, and experiences that shape how we show up in the world. I'm your host, Carl Allen. Today's guest is someone whose journey blends culture, creativity, entrepreneurship, and extraordinary resilience. Whitney Duenas Richardson is the founder of Global Sprouts, a fast-growing children's education brand celebrated for teaching cultural awareness, language, and creativity in homes around the world. With Chamorro and Dutch roots, Whitney brings a global perspective to parenting and learning. But her story is also one of profound adversity. She built her business while recovering from childbirth and later lost her home to Hurricane Helene, forcing her to rebuild her life and her brand from the ground up. Through her platforms at Whitful Guam and at Global Sprouts, she shares honest behind-the-scenes stories of building a purpose-led business, raising multicultural kids, and navigating hardship with humor and heart. Today, we will talk about her cultural heritage, her journey through loss and recovery, and how she brings this beauty of world cultures into people's homes. Whitney, welcome to the All About Us podcast show. How are you doing today?
Thank you, Carl. I'm so excited to be on your All About Us podcast and understanding and getting to chat more about my background as well as yours and having an open conversation.
Okay, roots and heritage. Whitney, can you start by sharing a bit about your Chamorro and Dutch background and how those cultures shaped you growing up?
Yeah. This is my favorite question that even like my closest friends have asked me, which I feel very blessed that they feel inspired to ask. And I grew up on the island of Guam, which is teeny tiny on a map. It's 13 miles long by 8 miles wide at the widest point. And it really is based on community and it always found that I want to know and understand more about whatever community I'm a part of. So whether that's an entrepreneurial community or my child's community or just my tennis community or my paddling community, I like to indulge myself in every culture. So growing up on a small island and I was very blessed that my parents like to travel. So we traveled all over Asia. I got to see different cultures and different countries in Asia. Once I moved from the island my senior year of high school, moved to North Carolina. That's how Wit from Guam came to be because no one understood where Guam was, who Chamorros were, why I ended up in North Carolina. And I ended up there because my parents totally lied to me and said, well, we're moving to the coast. It'll be pretty. The water will be so clear. And it's drastically different than crystal clear Pacific Ocean. And then after my last year of college, I moved to Europe and I lived in Italy, but I traveled all over Europe, specifically traveling back and forth to the Netherlands to understand my Dutch side of the family and get closer with them. And now I travel the world for a living to teach the next generation of American children to be more kind and curious about others.
Okay, I'm going to digress a bit here because Guam, I'm in the process of relocating to Puerto Rico. I'll be in Puerto Rico by the end of the month. But Guam, isn't that considered part of the Caribbean?
No, Guam
It's
is
not?
a small island in the Pacific.
It's on the other side.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Because see, I was in the Marine Corps and I remember I believe they have a military base on Guam. But
They do now.
okay.
So the military takes up a bunch of the island. The northern tip is Air Force. The west, like southwestern tip is Navy, and they just built a Marine base, I think, 5 years ago now.
Yeah, I was in the Marine Corps. And so some people got stationed out there in Guam. So then that would be more Pacific Islander culture.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Exactly.
Okay. What traditions, values, or memories from your childhood do you now pass on to your children and other children?
I love this one. One of my favorite activities growing up, there's it's like a little stool and at the end there's a like round grater. And my favorite thing was climbing up a coconut tree, getting a coconut, using a machete, splitting it in half, getting the liquid out, making milk or grinding the coconut meat to make coconut candy. So a part of one of our Global Sprouts kits is coconut mat leaf weaving. So something that not everyone knows is every part of the coconut tree is useful. It's called the tree of life. So you can make a lot of the like huts back in the day on the island of Guam and a lot of island areas. They're made with palm tree leaves. That's your roof. So there's just so many pieces of the tree that's useful, and I think that's one thing that I teach my daughter, and when we talk about Guam in any of our events, that's a big.
It was strange because for the first time, I believe it was this year, I actually seen someone hollowing out the root, like the center of a coconut tree and cooking
Yeah, isn't that
inside,
something?
and it was like amazing to me. I said, "Oh, you could actually, actually use the trunk of the tree to cook and prepare food in." So that was actually amazing. When you think about identity, parts of your heritage feel the most present in your daily.
The cooking. I love Chamorro food. I love incorporating different spices and different ingredients that you might not necessarily use on a day-to-day basis as an American. I am always respectful to my elders, so it's really funny. We all of our neighbors, we live in Florida now. When I mean community, like none of the neighbors really hung out. Like some of them were pretty friendly. Now we're like this big pack of like 13. We do everything together. And the other day they were like, Whitney, like, thank you so much. Like we would have never known all of these friendships. Like this is a whole friend group. On Guam, it's you respect your elders and you give everyone a kiss on the cheek. And so when I see everyone, I do the same thing, and so does my daughter. And so that's a big part of my identity too. It's just respecting our peers and our elders specifically.
So, can you give us a little taste or, an explanation of the Chamorro culture? Just a little background and some specifics about it.
Yeah, so I'm not really great at the dates. I don't know which came first. I do know that we were under Spain, like Spain had colonized us for a little bit. And that's when we had a bunch, like my great grandfather is this Catholic Spanish priest, ironically. And so then throughout the lineage, that's how I got the Duenas last name, which came from Spain and that Spanish last name. And then my papa was on island and then so America took us, I forget the year, from Spain. And the Japanese occupied us the same day that Pearl Harbor happened. And so my papa was under Japanese for a little bit, and then he joined the army eventually and got out of there. But so that's a little bit about the history, how America took us from Spain, and then Japan took us for a little bit. America got us back. And so now we're a US territory. We have our own government. We call them villages, less of towns and cities, but more called villages. And I don't know. It's so like every village has their own Catholic church that has their own. So it's very religious on the island, and there's a fiesta every weekend specifically for the saints. So whenever your day of saintage, you have a big fiesta, and there's always just other little fiestas going on at the same time.
Okay, now is this culture, are you considered indigenous? Is your family considered indigenous to Guam? Okay. And is that culture more Latino based because of your last name, or is it more Pacific Islander, even though you have a Latino Spanish last name? Okay. 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 That clears that up. How have your multicultural roots influenced the way you see parenting and education?
My gosh, from the very beginning. I I lived a very minimalist life living on the island of Guam. One of my favorite stories to tell is at the end of the day, I went to high school on the top of the hill. Bottom of the hill, there was the all girls Catholic school, all boys Catholic school, and we'd all go down to the bottom. We'd do paddling, which is like a really big, like rowing boat with 6 people, and we'd paddle, and then we'd get in the back of a really small, tiny pickup truck with like a one cab, and we'd drive around the island. We might go surfing. We might just go to the beach. We'd hang out, eat some rice, probably with fenadini, which is like a soy sauce mixture, and some tomorrow barbecue. And then we'd take the truck back up to the top of the hill, hop on the bus, and go home. Wasn't allowed. You're supposed to only ride the bus if you were participating in sports or whatever. You had to stay after. That's what we did to hang out with our friends at the bottom of the hill. And I always had this sense of I love the environment. I want to be outside. I want to be rooted and grounded. And I just want to be open to all the endless possibilities. Being raised on such a small island in the middle of the ocean that gas is $5, $6 a gallon, everything's imported. It really makes you dream bigger. And I'll never forget, I was like 7 or 8. And every time we'd pass a parcel, for rent or sale, I'd be like, "Mom, like, we should rent that and own a business. Like, what are we doing here?" And so just having that mindset of how can I better my environment, I use that as being a mom and I incorporate that into being a parent of we don't need the luxury items that you see on a day-to-day base in America. You don't need the Louis Vuittons or all the Lululemons. You need a stable environment, a loving family, a good community, and people to lean on. And that's the important part to me as a parent.
Okay, and what is the food like?
Ooh. A lot of rice.
Okay, she's in a lot of rice.
Our McDonald's sells rice and Spam for breakfast, which is my favorite meal ever. I love Spam and rice for breakfast.
Wow, I've never had that.
Oh, it's so
I've
good.
had spam. I've had spam, but I've never had spam and rice for breakfast.
Yeah, and then if you put some ketchup on your Spam and some fettuccine on your rice, it's so yummy. I love it. And so a lot of that, a lot of barbecue, whole pigs for like good, like big fiestas. You'll see the pig roasting, like coconut candy, roschetti is like little chips or like little cookies, I mean. And Bonello's dogu is like fried banana balls, I guess I would say. A lot of good food that you would see on any island for the most part.
Do you eat a lot of fish and seafood?
I always ate the barbecue myself because I did not like seafood until like 5 years ago and I was already in the States.
Okay. But was that common on your island at the time and you just didn't indulge?
Just pretty young. I don't really remember. I'm sure it was. My uncle owned a fisherman's co-op, so they were always out fishing. It would be safe to assume yes.
Okay. Your journey includes some incredibly difficult challenges, postpartum recovery, and losing your home to Hurricane Helene. Can you take us back to that time? I know it's difficult, but
Um, yeah, of course I can. Postpartum was easy. I mean, I think my difficult journey, Global Sprouts is my second business. My first business was born out of a really bad car crash I had in 2016, almost lost my life. And I think from that moment forward, it was you have a second chance. You're not truly weren't supposed to be here. You got very lucky that you made it out of a coma and surgery and you're here to live the next day. And so I did that. Had my first business, sold it during COVID. It was a fitness studio, sold the equipment, then moved down to Florida. Then I had my daughter. And that was a very exciting time of my life. But I do think because of my fitness background, so we did a floor bed instead of a crib, which is where just like a mattress on the floor from the moment she was a newborn and now she's in a big girl bed. But I reached down to pick her up and I herniated my lower back, like my L5. Not fun. This is the second or maybe even third time though that I've had to advocate for my health. So my first back doctor said, "You need to lose weight," which like you're postpartum, so obviously I get that. "You need to work out more. You can do a spinal injection, but also we have an opening for surgery next week. We can fix your herniated disc and be on your way." Speaking from someone that's been operated on at that point 3 times in my core section. So I have a scar from pretty much my rib cage down to my pelvic area. I think it's 13 inches now. Didn't want to be opened up on my backside because as your a scar tissue heals, it can pull your intestines towards one side of your abdominal wall. It already happened before. So I was like, no, I did do the spinal injection, but I really used weightlifting to help that disc as well as DRX. So it's where you lay on a decompression machine. They pull you head to toe. You're horizontal. It allows your disc to reabsorb, which helped me tremendously. So postpartum, you're doing that, right? You're like, I've messed up my back. Now I'm on the road to healing. I'm trying to work out to lose the extra weight from being pregnant. And it's just a mess. So that rolls around. And then Hurricane Helene hits last October, September. I can't remember now. Fight or flight. It is a mental shit show for at least 6, 7 months that I did not realize. It was very, 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 very tough. I'm in the house now because we've rebuilt, but 4 to 5 feet of water. So, like up to covering these light switches right here. And it's really tough coming into your house and having to pick and choose what you're going to save and what you're not going to save. So all of your childhood memories. I'm very grateful that my child was born in 2023 and we only lost physical things. We still have all the pictures, but we lost a bunch of childhood pictures from my husband and myself that aren't in the cloud. And so you're like, "Oh, thank goodness for technology." Sometimes I hate it, but man, am I that we have all these photos in the cloud. We lost her, like, coming home outfit from the hospital. It's just really it's very traumatic, and you think it's fine. You're mentally telling yourself it's fine. Then you move back into your house after you renovate, and you're like, "Oh, but if we flood again because it's hurricane season, what's gonna happen?" So now we have plans to prevent that in the future. But we were traveling right after the storm to visit family for Thanksgiving, and I had a few of my friends ask me why I was raising my child to be bilingual. And it was important to me being from Guam. Chamorro is also the name of the language, and it's a dying language. So I'm not only teaching my daughter Chamorro, as much vocabulary as I know, because my dad was never taught it. So I've taught myself a good amount. I'm also teaching her Spanish, and she's in Spanish programs, and then obviously English. And a few of my friends were like, "She's too young. She's never going to remember. Why would you ever do that?" It was
Kids
like, well,
learn languages early better when they're younger than they do older.
and by the time she was 2, we went to Costa Rica and when she was 18 months old and understood everything people at the playground were saying.
Yeah, kids pick up language like 1, 2, and 3 years old. They absorb it like a sponge. It's just when you get older, and I don't know why most people don't know that, but it's
Yeah.
absolutely true. You start a child with languages very, very early on. What helped you stay grounded and hopeful during all that rebuilding process with, Hurricane Helene?
Global sprouts. That was my only steady thing. Mentally up here, I knew what I wanted to do with the business. That was my distraction from what was going on in my personal life. Seeing it grow, seeing people take on to it, seeing people want to subscribe, see more, understand more, that really grounded me in a way that I could have never expected. Because in the moment, we're not living in our house. We're living in an apartment that we didn't like. We went through like some bad babysitters, some good babysitters. It was just an absolute crazy town, personally. The Global Sprouts was, I started working out, doing more Pilates, finding a place, like a place for myself to really recover, but also to bring Global Sprouts to the next level.
How did all these different challenges and struggles get you to recognize and understand strength and vulnerability?
Coming out on the other side, what I always tell myself is keep moving, even if you don't want to do it, getting into that routine. Even though you don't see the payoff now, it'll always come to you in the end, whether that's through friendships, community, understanding, all types of different things. And there's always an end that will flourish. And so being vulnerable and sharing that with other founders or small business owners, other people that are in my circle, telling them, "Oh, I don't feel good about this," or "I'm really struggling today to want to design my kitchen because I'm scared it's gonna flood again," or "I'm really struggling today because I lost 10 subscribers yesterday and I don't know how I'm gonna make the bills for next month," or XYZ. So being able to share, I think, is one of the hardest things to do, but also one of the most beautiful things to do because sharing makes you understand and realize what's coming on the other side.
Looking back, what surprised you the most about your ability to rebound and bounce back from all of this?
What surprised me the most? I think it's how much I want certain things. So, how much do I want to live at the beach? How much do I want my business to succeed? And the more that I would think about things, the more I would just make them happen. So, if I wanted, we did this beautiful backsplash in our kitchen. Not in the budget, definitely wasn't paid for by insurance, but I made it happen and it's like absolutely breathtaking and gorgeous. And so thinking about something and just putting it out into the universe and seeing if it happens has been super beautiful and super surprising to me.
Yes, everybody should. I mean, you should speak and believe what you want and just go for it. Let's talk about Global Sprouts. What was the original spark behind the idea of starting this, business?
It was people telling me I shouldn't teach my kid another language. So the way to fix that is by teaching children younger to accept others and want to explore other cultures. The second would be I couldn't find any activities to do with my almost 2-year-old at that time that talked about people and not the geography. All of our competition says go to France, see Paris, see the Eiffel Tower, but I want to know, what do Parisian kids do in the morning? Do they immediately wake up and go to school? Do they eat breakfast then go to school? Do they go to school at 10 a.m. because they have quality family time? And the goal for each kid is for families to choose one thing out of the box that resonates with them that they can apply on a day-to-day basis that teaches their children about another culture. So less about the geography of it. We can all look at a map and figure out where France is, but it's a lot harder to understand the the people of France and the French and understanding what they do on a day-to-day basis and how we can relate.
Okay. How did you bring language and culture and creativity into children's education? That seems like an interesting blend that you don't see most people doing or conceptualizing.
So we partner with one cultural ambassador from every country to create their kit. So it was very important for me to give back and understand thoroughly and genuinely what is culturally accurate and not a culture. So we've partnered with them and we do activities by matching, tracing, reading, pictures, flashcards, language, and then we're able to incorporate all of that into a magazine style.
What are some of the cultures that have a different daily, I guess I would call it workflow, that surprised you the most? With me, Spain, I always thought the way they live in Spain, they have their afternoon siesta, all of that stuff. That was always interesting to me. But what cultures did you find had kind of like a culturally different workflow for the day?
Spain was our first country, and they definitely do, right? We all know, most of us know the time difference of when they start their day, when they eat dinner. A little bit in Italy too. They're like in between, I feel like our schedule and Spain's schedule. Indonesia was really cool because the children pray very frequently. And so that was really cool to witness. And then the Philippines was cool just to see how different their days are and what their journey looks like. Walking to school is totally different than one's journey in America walking to school. We did Lesotho, which hasn't been released just yet, but it's a small kingdom in the middle of South Africa. And the way that they cook their meals are different than the way that we're cooking our meals on a stove in a house in America. So being able to see less so about the routine of the day and like hourly structure, but more so of what playgrounds look like, how do you cook your meals? How do you talk to your parents? How do you show respect? Things like that are different.
Okay. How do you choose which cultures, stories, or languages to highlight in your products and content?
The cultural ambassador. So I've traveled to 46 different countries. And my favorite thing to do is free walking tours. And I always meet someone cool. And so I tap into my network in all these countries that I've been to. And I ask them to either point me in the right direction of an early childhood education specialist in their country, or if they're able to help me, then we'll hire them. And they fact check everything. They help us create activities, games, toys, and we go from there.
Oh, this is very interesting. What does it mean to you to bring global traditions into people's homes in an accessible and joyful?
It means that we're teaching the next generation to be culturally curious and empathetic towards one another in a way that we haven't tapped into just yet. We can learn math on a day-to-day basis using caretas, which are ox carts from Costa Rica, and just understanding this is how they transported coffee back and forth, but also learning math. So instead of using carrots or plums or flowers like we might see in activity books, we can just use cultural things from other countries and cultures. And I think that's important. And it's really cool to see it all come together.
Yeah. How does humor and honesty help you stay grounded through all the ups and downs?
I like making fun of myself for sure, because if I don't make fun of things, it makes me feel even more anxious and worried about it. And then just being honest with me with how the company's doing, how we're being received. And truly, honestly, the biggest thing I've seen so far is being honest with we are so far ahead of the curve right now with Americans wanting to learn about other cultures that Americans aren't quite there yet with wanting to intertwine what we have on a day-to-day basis in their kids' life. So it's very hard to be the person at the front of the pack trying to lead the rest of the others to teach them, hey, we should want to know about other cultures. We're just one world. And so being honest with myself about that has really helped shift how much money we're pouring into paid advertising, how much money we're investing into the business without taking on additional outside funding.
Do you actually believe that America actually has a culture? It seems like we're driven by particular expectations, more so like education, work, money, buying a home, buying a car. I mean, do you see us as having a particular culture in a sense?
I think that is our culture. I mean, it might not be what so we're so blended from so many different types of walks of life, right? And I mean, a big part of why everyone wants to leave Guam and come to America is because you have all this opportunity, but the opportunity comes from work, education. Everyone comes here for college, money, making money. There's only so much money to be made in our home island. And so unfortunately and fortunately at the same time, like, it's nice to be surrounded by like-minded, keep it going entrepreneurs, but also I think that is just what we've made our culture.
Okay. How does your own multicultural background influence your creative choices, or doesn't it? Are you just, okay, this looks interesting? Or do you use your cultural background to kind of, selectively choose what you pick and choose to add or integrate?
Say less on it being my cultural background. I will say traveling has been because of my cultural background because I was raised traveling and seeing other places. And there was this one moment in the Philippines. We were staying in Manila. There was a gentleman with no legs on a skateboard. I saw him that morning and then I saw him again the next day when we were in a suburb, like 45 minutes away from the city center. And every morning since that day, and I was, I don't know, under 10, I've always said I'm so grateful to have two working legs. I hope my legs always hold my body up. So that made me of who I am with a mantra and a daily like manifestation and a gratitude practice. So having that helped. And also just seeing different countries and cultures and seeing how pretty they are. And I use my right side and my left side of my brain very frequently so I can see when I can turn something into being this creative educational aspect.
Okay. You're very open about the healing journey you've been on. How has motherhood changed the way you approach emotional recovery?
I want to show my family in general, more specifically my children, that your brain is so powerful and your mind really is the creator of all of your thoughts and your body is your machine, your vehicle. And through those moments, it actually is pretty helpful because I'm sitting here and I'm telling myself and I'm telling my daughter and I'm telling my husband, like, let's just breathe through this. If we're getting frustrated, let's take a moment, let's step back, let's take some deep breaths, let's go on a walk, let's change scenery and see how we can propel forward. I think emotionally throughout all of it, the very first week or so, I mean, everyone's in fight or flight. Even before the hurricane came, we were out of town. I was out of town with a girlfriend. Both of our husbands came back to prepare the house, and then we're still out of town. So obviously, it's not safe to be here if we're expecting 10 feet of flooding. So then you're even more worried 'cause now you're not with your husband. Now you have these two kids, and where we were evacuated at, there was tornado warning. So it's just a cluster of emotions. And then you see your kids start to act crazy and, like, act up, and you're like, "Wait, I need to really regulate myself so that my kids can be regulated so that we're not all stressed out." And deep breathing and understanding, I am feeling XYZ has been super helpful for all of us and being able to communicate our feelings.
Yeah. How do you stay creative while juggling parenting, healing, and entrepreneurship?
Traveling by myself. I don't want anyone else with me. I don't want to be on anyone else's timeline. I want to do things on my own. My goal is to see every country. I don't want to see every country with my daughter. I want her to grow up and determine if she wants to see every country on her own or what she wants to do.
Can I ask you what month are you born?
October.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. So I like to have personal space to not be on anyone's timeline. And honestly, solo traveling has been it for me for sure.
Okay. What's something people might be surprised to learn about what goes on behind the scenes of building global sprouts?
I think this is a really cool fact is I didn't have this epiphany until it happened a few times. But what I hope that parents get out of all of our kids is they're so culturally authentic to that culture that when you start to get these kits and you open them up and you start to open up these toys throughout the 12 countries that we currently have, 3 of them include spin tops because spin tops are that prominent in 3 different cultures. And it just shows you, and we do a lot of like project-based learning questions in each of these kits, that we all start with the same childhood toys. We all start with the same building blocks. We all start with learning our ABCs in whatever language, the alphabet. We all start with our common words and common toys. And there's a few specific ones just different cultures, but Jackstone's popular in a lot of places. When I create a culture box, I create them based on my experience traveling to that country, and then I send what I think the strategy should be for that kit to our cultural ambassador. And the cultural ambassador will then tell me if it's authentic or appropriating or not. And
Oh,
so
hold on. This is so interesting to me. I'm very excited about this. I'm sorry to interrupt you. So, when you join Global Sprouts, you kind of get to pick like a culture, and then you pick a culture, and then you will send them a box with different items and toys and
yeah,
things in it. That's incredibly cool, incredibly shocking. So, I thought that's where you were going with that, but that's something I wanted to bring out and have our listeners know when that just struck me. That's so incredibly cool.
yeah.
Continue.
No, so it comes with a box, a craft kit, a toy, and some other tangible items based either from that culture or from them. And so we send that to children all over the states right now. And we incorporate like a magazine workbook that kids can do activities and cook recipes with their family.
This is great.
It's really fun.
It's
And so
great.
being able to see that come to life has been really, really.
I'm 60 years old and it almost wants me to have another. Okay. How do humor and honesty help you? Well, no, I think I asked that. Nah, we're not going to go back there. Okay, let's jump here. You built a strong online presence with Wit from Guam and at Global Sprouts. What's Wit from Guam?
Wit from Guam is just my personal account that I've taken people through the journey of my fitness studio, Hurricane Helene, now Global Sprouts, and just showing like the authenticity behind being a woman-owned business owner, a founder, and just like the ebbs and flows of a day-to-day life.
Okay, okay. What role does storytelling play in connecting with your audience?
Empathy. There's
Okay.
not many ways to create empathy, but by telling our story through my personal experiences as well as Global Sprouts, we're able to create a deeper level of empathy, of understanding where we're coming from behind the brands and where we're going.
How many of these different kits do you currently have available?
We will have 12 by April. I think we're on month 9 right now.
And how much of these are all these kits the same price?
So if you subscribe, they're $39.99 with free shipping. And then if you are buying them one off, are 54 or $46.99.
Okay, and if you subscribe, you get a kit each month then. Okay, okay. How do you balance being online with protecting your family's privacy and mental space?
Well, I hire it out, first of all. I know what I want to post, and I do all of that. I get all the content, and then someone else does it for me. And then I do I'm currently faceless for my daughter on my personal on Wit from Guam. And then in 2026, we're aiming to be faceless for Global Sprouts,
Okay. What do you mean by faceless?
not showing children's faces.
Okay. Okay. What do you think people connect with most about your approach to visibility and authenticity?
That we're all just doing the same thing. We're all just doing it day by day in different ways and different mindsets, but being able to see that it's not always glitters and sparkles and there's other things going on, I think is very important.
What kind of impact do you hope your work makes on the next generation?
I hope that they're raised to be kind and curious and understanding of others. Most importantly, we have plenty of jerks already. We should try to limit the amount of them. So, doing our work as parents, I think, is the first step of educating ourselves about others and as well as our children.
Okay, this is that part of the show I call flip mode where you get to ask me 3 questions.
Okay. How many countries have you seen so far?
Okay. Most of my international traveling was when I was in the military. Okinawa, Japan, Philippines, Dua Beach, Thailand, Hong Kong, South Korea, and Australia. So I think
Okay.
that's about 6, but all of those 6 were kind of compressed into 6 months. Like October of 1983 till like January of 1984.
Okay.
It was kind of culture shock, and I haven't really done much of it since. The only place I've really traveled off the mainland recently is Puerto Rico, and I love it there, and I'm getting ready to move there.
What inspired your move to Puerto Rico?
Oh, wow. When I first got off of the plane, I was in culture shock. The buildings looked a lot older. You seen the older cars. It it kind of the best way I can describe it was like going back to the 1960s and the I Love Lucy show, and I was expecting to see Ricky Ricardo come across the street and start talking. I mean, I was in a culture shock in that sense. It almost reminded me a lot of like what I see in the pictures and everything that the kind of feel that Cuba gives you, but not going back that far. But anyways, I was like, wow, I was in culture shock. The strange thing about it was it took me like 1 hour to adjust. I mean, it was like the switch flipped and I like said, oh, I love this culture. Oh, I love this vibe. And I just embraced it. And I was able to slow down and just throw off everything that America had dressed me mentally and inspirationally with, just throw all of that up. And it was just like life exploded. Everything went from 3D to 4D there. So it's like when I'm back in America, it's like everything is just like plain gray and mundane. And then when I go to Puerto Rico, it's like,
That's awesome. That's a great reason to move somewhere. How do you see yourself indulging in the Puerto Rican culture?
one thing I learned pretty much was that it's difficult for me to, how can I say it, just totally give up the American culture, give up the American culture. So I need to be able to go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth between the two. And, I'll spend a couple days embracing, Puerto Rican culture and then come back and maybe a day and be able to do American things and that way keep a balance.
I love that.
So while we're waiting for my phone to recharge, tell me about some of the more interesting places you visited.
Ooh, I would say my favorite is the Czech Republic.
Wow.
It was so colorful. I absolutely loved it. Literally my favorite place probably to travel.
That's also one of the things about Puerto Rico. When you go to Puerto Rico, you will see the orange, yellow, lime green. All the buildings are like painted all kinds of crazy colors. So
Yeah, I went to Puerto Rico in 2023, and I had a friend move out there in the middle of last year, and it's really, really cool. I went in 2022. I can't believe it's been that long, and it's fun because you're still, like, in American territory, but you're able to, like, get the island life a little bit closer. That's the problem with Guam is it takes 24 hours to fly there, so it's really
Yeah, 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 yeah. It's quite different, quite different. Okay. As Global Sprouts grows, what excites you most about the future?
seeing more kids indulge in our kits and understand other cultures and seeing where they're inspired to travel to.
Do you have a kit with you right now?
I can grab one.
Go grab one. Let's see.
Okay, so this is the front.
Okay.
This is our Indonesia kit. And inside of it, we have a batik art. So it comes with a cloth, like a fabric square, a spray bottle, and then a marker so that you can make your own little batik craft kit, the Indonesian flag, which children love flags. A kite that children can make. And the reason we have the kite is part of the story in our booklet is the kite. The spin top I was talking about that kids could paint. Then a postcard so that they can send it to a family member telling them that they about Indonesia. And then we also have like a parent's guide with the QR codes, what's in your kit, and then explains it all.
Okay. Are kites big in Indonesia?
They are.
Okay. I figured they are.
And then we have our little like workbook.
Okay.
You have your passport with Globy, a little bit of a story, and then you have like a I Spy page.
Okay. Okay. So you have a mascot or an icon, and what is that icon's name? A mascot?
It's Globy.
Okay. Okay.
And so Globy travels the world and he'll be on like the recipe page. This is where kids are tracing Indonesian words, their recipes, and then some other little games that they can do.
Okay, that's great. That's great. That's great. Are there new cultures, themes, or languages you're hoping to explore next?
Always. I mean, there's how many countries? And so I would love to have at least at the very minimum, a little workbook that kids can purchase too.
Okay. And finally, what does growing global hearts mean to you today?
That we're raising next generation to be kind and curious and understanding and really knowing that the heart of people is where it's at and just being kind towards one another.
What does it mean to you to raise children who see the world as interconnected and full of possibilities?
That means everything. That's exactly why we've created Global Sprouts is the possibilities are endless of growing up on a tiny island where there's only so much you can do and see unless you go elsewhere to owning two different businesses and seeing them come to fruition and not needing a huge investor to back a company. It's really just starts from your heart and understanding that there's so many different people out there that are rooting for you.
For parents listening who feel overwhelmed or pressured to do it all, what would you want them to hear?
Do one thing at a time. Thing that your child wants the most is you. Not even your full attention half the time. They just want your presence in the room. And I'm very big into energies and auras and just being very positive and light-minded. And I think that's what starts it all, is being there for one another and being understanding.
Okay, well, tell my listeners how they connect with you online and how do they get involved in Global Sprouts? Tell us,
Yes.
give us all your information.
So you can buy a Global Sprouts kit at globalsprouts.com and you can follow us on social media with Global Sprouts. And then you can follow my personal accounts or connect with me on LinkedIn using Wet from Guam as well.
Okay, all of this information will be on our promos and show notes. Whitney, thank you for sharing your story, your culture, and your heart with us. Your journey shows that resilience and creativity can grow side by side, even in the hardest seasons, and that our roots can guide us towards something beautiful. For our listeners, you can follow Whitney's journey on at Wit from Guam and at Global Sprouts to explore her work and her mission to bring world cultures into homes everywhere. This has been the All About Us podcast show where we celebrate the stories that connect us across cultures, challenges, and generations. Until next time, stay curious, stay grounded, and stay inspired. Have a great day.